How close to death were we?
Yes, master.
Hang on, I don't think that's right. It's 8 a.m. That's right, we're back with some more positive attitude and energy.
Lots of energy.
And maybe we're just a little punchy. We've been working hard. We put in 3 new wheel cylinders yesterday. That basically dried out the system outside of the master cylinder. So there's a lot of fluid to push in a lot of directions. So you're banging on the master cylinder and it's doing the best it can. It's like, man, I'm just pushing the fluid, doing the thing.
I am doing my best here.
But like, it's a vacuum system. So it's like push further and then pull back, push further, pull back. Don't want to get too pumped here, but I think I got some pedal. I had to get clever using my brain pan. So I kind of lost sleep over this, trying to figure out how to pressure bleed or, it's early. Trying to figure out how to pressure bleed or in some other way gravity bleed, or what would Leonardo da Vinci have done here?
Leonardo da Vinci was an autodidact, so was Benjamin Franklin.
Guy worked in hydraulics. What I came up with was I had this tired old Mighty vacuum pump that somebody gave me, but she's down. All of the vacuumification comes right out the gauge. So I realized, well, hang on. I still have the little canister for it, which basically is a tube that goes to the cap and then a tube that goes to like a siphon. And I thought, well, I got an air compressor. So I gave her the old 5-pound treatment, cracked the bleeder, basically pressure bled everything backwards. That kind of got us enough fluid in the system and filled everything up enough that I was able to do my trucker pump. And I got a little bit of pedal now. Where it used to go all the way to the floor, it now stops probably about an inch, which isn't great, but it may not be bad either. Kind of curious to try it, but we're not there yet, are we, gang? No, we have to go to O'Reilly's at least once more because, well, we don't have brake shoes. If you guys just heard a great big plop sound, that was my heart hitting the floor. Look at that crack. Feels like progress. Too scared to say that it is, though. The thought was it drove in here, right? So the front brakes were kind of okay. Let's do the rears, and then if we have a problem with the brakes, then we know it's in the rear. Or it's in the brand new master cylinder that we just put on. But now, it could be any damn where. We made a mess, just gotta kind of hose it down there. All right, that's good. Nailed it. Perfect. I'm waiting for parts to come in. We need our new front shoes. They should be there in 20 or 30 minutes. So, let's take a look at this. How close to death were we? All right, gang, lift with your back. Go up. Come on. Keep coming. You know what we're looking for, gang. Spiders. No, just kidding. I mean, there's evidence they were in there, though. Yeah, I know, we need some light.
Yes, master.
Down in there on the bottom, if you can see it. A little bit of rust and goo showing. So that wheel cylinder is on the outs. Already got signs on the outside. See, it's kind of greasy looking. Oh yeah, it's the same deal. Rusty, crusty stuff on the bottom, which just means that there's a little bit of brake fluid seepage past the piston and the seal and all of that stuff, the cup, as it were, inside this, right there. Because this one just fired itself right out overnight. That's how they work, gang. There's a little seal cup like that, then a piston, and then a spring. Simple as hell. The thing is, once that seal starts to give it up, the fluid pressure can sneak past, and once it starts to sneak past, you start getting rust around the edges, which pits, which makes a bigger hole, but Once this is failing or the bore is not smooth enough, basically your fluid's going to take the path of least resistance. It's no longer going to push and activate your brakes. It's going to push and get all over the inside of your drum, which is going to make your brakes not work at all, right? Because no fluid is pushing the shoes out, and then bad things happen. It's like really bad ones. I may be one of the worst on the planet about doing like out of hibernation maintenance, and I can tend to let a car sit for longer than I should, and blah, 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 blah. But right here is a prime example. I got in it, I backed it out, I drove it onto this lift, and we had 3 leaking wheel cylinders and a factory single master cylinder. It holds like this many fluids. One emergency stop could have blown out any of those 3 wheel cylinders, right? Or we could have lost enough fluid to have had 0 brakes. Not only did we have issues on the front and the rear that a dual master cylinder would have only slowed down the catastrophe, because we had a single master cylinder on there, the potential for disaster was much higher. I don't know how to say this any more plainly. Any one of those 3 could have cost us a complete brake failure, pedal to the floor. 318th trip to O'Reilly's later, we've got some brand new brake shoes. I was gonna say, let's bang these in and then go for a test drive, but that's not true. We gotta bang these in and then remember why we pulled this in here in the first place. I went to take it to a car show the other day, and by the other day, I mean 9 months ago, and the generator wasn't generating. She's not charging. Let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. I'm starting to feel like the dog. That's all I wanna do right now. So let's get after it. We are out of winds. We've had seconds and thirds and fourths. On the planet. I am not even messing around. But there's a big crack that's running straight along this way. So my excuse for pulling this thing in here is this generator, which we have determined the regulator is bad, purchased a new alternator. So hopefully we can make a simple swap and just jam the alternator in there. It's either gonna be simple or it's gonna just go all kind of sideways. And if you guys watch this channel, we don't do simple around here. We're all about sideways. I'm gonna snatch this thing off of here. It's gonna go back on the shelf right where I got it from. This was my spare. It does seem to be charging just fine. It's probably, well, one of the two, the original or this one. This was bought for the Model T, actually. One of them will most likely find its way onto the 27, and that's, you know, a vanity thing entirely. Kind of feel like if the engine's on display, you know, if we end up not running a hood or whatever, well, then the engine's on display. You know, I don't know. None of this stuff makes any sense anymore. It's like, when is it not period correct or whatever enough? And I think that's a decision that everybody has to make on their own car. It's like, some people will run a flathead and an alternator and it'll make me go, ugh. And then people are gonna look at my car and go, dude, you're running disc brakes and tri-power in a generator. Like, why are you, why? The answer is, goddamn it, because I want to. But I'm hoping we get lucky. Didn't check the belt size, the pulley size, didn't check a damn thing. We're just grabbing new tools instead of trying to retrieve the ones we just dropped. That's really where I'm at this point. All right. There we go, little buddy. This is the original. Sorry, pal. You did great. Sentimental about it, not even kidding you. I was looking at this bracket. Not terrible work either. Not great. A couple pieces of angle iron, and then this big thing I cut out of plate. Most likely the first bracket I ever built. Well, not true. There was a version of that that was much less heavier, and everything went whoa, 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 whoa. I built the much more stouter version and a thicker steel. So this is the first bracket that stayed. So we had a prototype before that. What was I doing? Alternator. Keep me on track, guys. I am struggling. Stop. Collaborate and listen. Just don't return this. Do what I want. That was going entirely too good. See, our belt's doing that kind of a number. So this whole thing's got to go out that way a bunch. It's weird to feel like when something's going well, you're getting tricked. All right, so I found this alternator bracket on the shelf. We had to modify it by poking a new hole in it to line it up with our custom made generator bracket holder. The generator bracket's remarkably close. We're just trying to get the belt aligned so it doesn't sound like there's some kind of cat caught in a box fan, you know? I can't keep track of anything. I can't even keep track of what I'm trying to find, like what I lost. Does that make sense? Can't keep track of what I lost? Like I forgot what thing it was that I was looking for. Sure, that'll do. That'll do. Okay, we're pretty close. Hey, you know what I just figured out? Look here, fellers. I wonder if this gap is just so you can shim it out with washers. If that's exactly what it's meant to do. Oh crap. I believe we've already covered it at some point in this endless saga that I'm plumb out of 3/8 inch washers there. Life will find a way. Guys, I had a solution, but I dropped it and it's painted black and I didn't hear it hit the ground. Calming thoughts. I'd use my light to find it, but I don't know where that is either. I'm gonna come unglued. Hey, pal. It's the dog. Doggo vision. Doggo vision. Hey, buddy. Gang, it's a gall-darn miracle. I don't even know what to tell you. Holy smokes. Oh wait, I'm trying to lighten your eyeballs. Oh, that's not, that is. I just pulled this out of the valley, the oil valley, with this magnet. I had knocked the oil filler cap off, which is just an El Cheapo Mr. Gasket. Sorry, this is not good. And it was missing one of its dingly danglers. Magnet snatched it out of there. Holy crap. Guess we'll be not getting a new one of those. We'll be getting anything the hell else. Alternator's on. Now we just have to wire it. I rewired the car at some point, relatively recently, considering I've owned it for 20 years. And I left the alternator exciter wire out here bundled up. Way to go me. All this is a 12 volt ignition source keyed on. Some people will steal 12 volts off the coil. I don't think that's a good idea. Your coil likes 12 volts. Ignition's not where I'd be robbing voltage. That's all I'm saying. So find some other keyed on ignition source that goes into terminal 1 on the thing. Terminal 2 goes from the terminal to the battery thing, and the battery thing to any spot on the battery. So you can run it all the way home. I'm gonna try running it back to this wire here. I'll disconnect this, and that's been what's been charging the car for, I don't know, since I redid the wiring until the regulator went down. I know people are all about one wire alternators. Do your research. These 3 wires are really common, inexpensive, and not much more complicated. It's really like 2.5 wires, because one just loops over and becomes a thing. The other one is the 12 volt source, which just tells the alternator, like, hey man, it's 12 volts. Do your business. Gang, let's have a moment. People seem to be bored of the small block Chevy, but I would say that a lot of the people that frown on it have never really built a car. You know, they're like they're the forum people that build cars on the internet or tell other people what engine they should have in it. The thing about it is, this engine's 60 years old. It is still a vintage engine. It just happens to be one of the better designs to come out of the late 50s. That's just the way it is. But what I like about it is I learned everything on this motor. Like, this was the first one I ever screwed up and got to start messing with. And the thing about it is, it still has a points ignition, because I like that, because I can diagnose that better than I can diagnose an HEI. It's got a carburetor. To adjust it, it takes a screwdriver. Sure, it's got an alternator. It's different than a generator, but the charging system functions similarly. I can understand all of this stuff, and it takes some simple hand tools to adjust it. The stuff on this motor is allowed to go bad. Like, it's allowed to wear out, like the distributor or whatever else. Running a vintage engine that was more rare, when I seized a distributor in my Y block, that was a thing, man. I had to find, that was not, if I can get to a parts store, I can buy a distributor and swap it on the side of the road. When my distributor seized in my Y block, I got towed, man. I had to find another one, you know? Just saying, I understand rare is cool. I feel like this is best of all the worlds. And I think that Ford has some engines like that. Chrysler, I'm sure, has engines like that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys have an engine that you like, can get all that vintage mechanical tinkering with, but still feel like if you wear out parts made to be worn out, you're not going to be in a lurch? Anyway, where were we? What the hell was it? Wiring. We've wired in the alternator. Is it time to fire it up and test it? Guys, I'm delirious. I'm a little scared to do this. Got to take off the hat. What's grosser, my hat or my hair? Probably my hat. I've been wearing it so that my head doesn't hit the bottom of the oil pan. This hat does. Okay. Let's get our fire extinguisher close by, just because I've got those vibes, you know what I'm saying? This car's too nice for me. Alright, hat off. Hat's real gross. Do I have a brake pedal? Feel like I do. Think it could be better. Could be better. Might have to do one more round of bleeding with a little buddy. That's a little bit of a bummer. Thought I had more. All right. She's running. 13 and change. Not only is she charging, I kind of forgot we had this whole new bracket and belt set up. It's not squeaking. I mean, the pedal takes no effort. It goes right to the floor. But I got way too much stuff on the lift to be able to kind of try to move it and see if they hold. So here we are in a situation with no real pedal and no apparent leaks. It must be something else. Something's not working. Master cylinder is wrong. Or if you read the forums, they're going to tell you you need 10-pound residual valves. And whoa, slow down, slow down. Before that, we have to remember that this master cylinder is indeed made for drum brakes. So it should have valves in it. It should. They're in the diagram in the book. And somebody's going to say, well, it's below the floor. So you got to have the residual valves because, you know, fluid's going to run downhill and blah, 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 blah. The idea is that drum brakes have a bunch of springs that compress the wheel cylinder and force the fluid back. That's what they're designed to do. But that master cylinder is designed for that as well. This guy right here, I am still suspicious of it. So I undid the brake line, cleaned it all out with brake clean, and put it back together, and I think that we're good now.
No, we are not.
It's 95 degrees. It's 5 o'clock. We'll go for a ride? Not loving the brake. Short ride for me and dog. Very short. Well, that's a bummer. Yeah. Yep. Man, oh man, oh man. Where's the problem? Where's the problem? Where's the problem? All right, she's got brakes enough to stop, but that's not brakes enough, you know what I'm saying? Gang, back here, we're at the driver's side rear wheel. I thought I solved the problem. I pulled the lines apart, put them back together. I thought maybe they just didn't seat quite right because I'm not getting a fluid leak. This is one of the things that makes brakes so challenging. You think, well, if I've got air in the line, then I've got a fluid leak somewhere, and that's not always the case. If that bleeder screw is leaking, or the connection where the hard brake line goes into the wheel cylinder is leaking air, there may not be fluid in exchange. Let's say the wheel cylinder is full of fluid, right? And then you let off the pedal and it retracts. That may pull a little air in past the bleeders, at which point that wheel cylinder is spongy, so when you pump the brakes again, it's not gonna have enough pressure to force fluid back out of the same spot that air went into, right? So just because it's fluid tight doesn't mean it's airtight. I'm gonna try doing this by myself again, where I pump the brakes with my hand and then I pull the pedal down with a bungee cord. And if I've got air coming out of this brand new wheel cylinder has got to go. And I should probably replace the brake line that runs to it in case the cheesing is not the bleeder, but in fact, the wheel cylinder itself. Yeah, there was definitely air in that line again. That wheel cylinder was only 13 bucks, so I've had all I can stands. I can't stands no more. I'm gonna go see if I can get a new wheel cylinder and a new chunk of brake line, just in case if the threading in the wheel cylinder is off, then we probably monkeyed up the brake line. Hot rodding, baby. Brakes are hard, gang. It's early again. It's not bright though. It's kind of gloomy. Got a cup of little brown dog coffee. Got a little brown dog right here. With any luck, this coffee will turn me into a human real quick like. Gang, 15 years and 5 days under the car later, my keen powers of observation finally kicked in. This spring, right, Chunder, has always had this weird whoop-de-doo in the back. It's not doing the right springy stuff. I remember my old buddy Josh saying, well, that ain't right, what's going on there? And I never did figure it out. And I thought, well, on this rear end, it was my first time ever, I must have welded the perches cockeyed, like I was putting the spring in a bind. So I thought this time, because I have a lift, I'll weld the perches on in the car and get everything dialed in right, and that'll solve the problem. And when it didn't, I went, oh man, I guess it's just from the spring sitting. It's just trained to be that way. And then today, after I've been under this car for a week, I went, hang on, I don't think that's right. And for a quick comparison, I walked 5 feet and looked at the other side there and went, yep, that's more righter. So we're gonna reverse that shackle at some point too and get it right after 20 years. Look at us. Get out of there, come on now. Gang, I'm looking at it real hard like, and I'm not seeing anything obvious, which is obviously a problem. Gang, I'm not seeing an obvious problem with it. Now, we have proven that I am absolutely qualified to miss an obvious problem. Exempli gratia. Oh, there's a little wrinkle in that top thread right there. But anyway, don't know if it's enough. We're gonna replace it. Gang, I feel like I got all my eggs on this one horse. I'm really trying to mentally prepare myself for failure, you see. All right, that threaded in really easy by hand. I want to take that as an encouraging sign. This is the 38th contraption for brake bleeding I've employed the last several days. So we got a jug of brake fluid, we got it above the wheel cylinder, so hopefully if we're pumping from the master cylinder, air will go up and not fight it too hard, and then it will draw back fluid, which will create kind of hopefully a siphoning effect that will displace the air. Eagle walk, yes master. Not seeing a ton of movement, that seems a little odd, but that's okay, it's okay. Yep, we're back at the master cylinder. So we've got a pedal at this point. I haven't climbed in the car, but I'm doing the old arm grab, and I'm pretty attuned to that, I feel like, at this point. So what I'm feeling like is the pedal's doing its thing, but it's not grabbing quite as high up as I would like. So this is gonna be a little tedious, but I'm gonna jam a little bearing grease on there, like so. Then I'm gonna put the master cylinder back on, and if I don't have grease touching this thing, I'm gonna adjust it out a little bit and keep checking until I do, and then I'll back it off a thread. We need it to be really close, but it can't be holding the master cylinder piston in at all. While a pain in the butt, it will give us the truth. The truth will give us breaks, I hope. If anybody's wondering if I wish I had done this on the bench, the answer is absolutely. But I didn't know what I was doing, so that made it harder to do. 2 turns, 1. Yeah, that only took 30 minutes to adjust. No big deal, no big deal. So we scooted her out, I'd say an 1/8. Sure, an 1/8. Now we got a retractor. Slide the master cylinder on. Make sure that our thingamadoodle's seated all the way in. Slide it on. Mash it in. Slide it up. Does not appear that we have touched this at all. We're gonna continue the process, adjust out just a fuzz more. If this car wasn't on the lift, I'd have set it on fire by now. All right, maybe the 88th time is the charm. The absolute very least, we've changed this by nearly, I don't know, that's about a 1/4 inch. That's significant. That's 20% of our overall travel. So I was having some issues, so I stacked some washers, and then I cut my thingadoodle down with a grinder. And then we put it back in based on those measurements, and something was just wrong, apparently, because we can tell that we are not engaging our master cylinder with our grease test. So I would say this is a more worthwhile endeavor, really, even than measuring. I guess it's like using a plastic gauge or something where you need the physical evidence. Now, it should go without saying here, gang, but we do have a return spring on our pedal that is returning our pedal all the way. Because if you don't, well, that will skew your results. Because again, you want it real close with the fuzz of a gap. Fuzz, because you want to make sure that piston totally returns in the master cylinder. Instant pedal, gang, like instant. Brakes, guys, that's brakes. I'm kind of enthusiastic that I found where I screwed it up, but the short version is, I've been through this process. I thought I set my push rod right, and I guess I didn't. Now that I have, well, the pedal is engaging the master cylinder much higher up, which felt just like a spongy pedal. That said, I was consistently getting air out of this wheel cylinder, so I also think I had another problem there, which is really confounding, because you may think you found the source of your problem, but it may be multiple things also causing similar symptoms. We've been at this way the hell too long, but I think we're good now. We should have some brakes. But before we get into that, my enthusiasm turned into different than that. I think this is super dumb wishful thinking, but hey, I'm not above it. Let's see if I could just jack this feller up, see if it, if it wants to go. Because it's kind of at a neutral position right now. Straight, What about if we wang on it? Is that smart? Feels smart. Oh yeah, but 20 years later! 20 years later, we're finally getting something right. Guys. Oh, I think I'm delirious. I've been out in the heat way too long. But like, when I jack this wheel up to take to get into the brakes this morning, I started by putting a jack under the axle and the spring pad. It didn't give an inch. It was solid as a rock. And now we effectively have had no rear suspension on the driver's side. Oh, look at it go. Now it can be a spring. Whoo, boy, howdy. Little dog, you wanna go for a ride? Oh man, you're just good, aren't you, dog? All right, yeah, there we go. Sorry, lost a little dog brain. Here we go. This is dumb to be holding the camera, but we're gonna do it anyway. We're in first, not in reverse. All the way over and up. Yeah, brakes. All right, gang. Well, we're just kind of going for a little cruise around the parking lot across the street because we got new brakes. Oh, we got a lot of brakes. A lot of brakes. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not hitting it because I don't want to send the dog through the windshield.
Stay tuned for more.